reading segment, again from Operation Gladio by Paul L. Williams. And we are in chapter 15. This is part 16 of my series. So we're picking up on page 198. And without further ado, I will start reading where we left off. In January 1981, John Paul II met with Walesa and an 8-strong Solidarity delegation who sought his presence among the union workers to ward off any plans of Leonid Brezhnev for a Soviet invasion of Poland. The Pope said that he could not provide such personal intervention. He could only provide spiritual solace to his fellow Poles during this time of turmoil. Tadeusz Mazowiecki, a member of the delegation, recalled the meeting. The Pope was speaking about solidarity directly to some of its founding fathers, but I felt he was also speaking beyond us to the wider world. He said, "Solidarity is a movement that is not only fighting against something, but is also fighting for something." He made it clear that he saw solidarity as a movement for peaceful change. Neither Mazowiecki nor Walesa nor any other delegation member realized that John Paul II was engaged in talks with the Kremlin to bring about a political rapprochement between the Soviet leaders and the union organizers. The Pope felt uniquely qualified to forge an accord. As Archbishop of Krakow, he had dealt with communist leaders on a pragmatic basis. He realized that the godless Soviets and devout Catholics could live together under the same roof. The vast majority of Poles espoused Marxist doctrine during the week and trooped off to Mass on Sunday morning. The Pope understood this peculiar brand of Christian humanism. In December 1980, Soviet Central Committee Chairman Vadim Zagladin made the pilgrimage to Vatican City, where he secretly met with the Holy Father to come to an agreement over the labor problems in Poland. But an accord between Solidarity and the Kremlin forged by the Holy See would violate the claims and trusts of the Reagan administration, which spoke of the evil empire in order to spend $2.2 trillion on new weapons, including the Star Wars initiative, a fanciful technology supposed to vaporize any Soviet missiles approaching the United States from outer space. What's more, John Paul II's unwanted efforts would undermine the CIA's anticipated victory in the Cold War. The Soviets, after all, had stumbled into their own Vietnam, and the agency was very busy shipping to Afghanistan not only missiles and weapons, but also Tennessee mules uniquely capable of carrying the munitions to the Mujahideen in the mountains. To make matters worse, the Holy Father was negotiating with the Kremlin about other matters, including an agreement for nuclear disarmament and recognition of the Palestinian Liberation Organization. He had entered a political arena where his presence was neither wanted nor welcomed. Pardon me. On March 28, 1981, Solidarity mounted the largest strike in the history of the Soviet Union in protest of the beating of 4 Polish workers by the Communist Security Service. Between 12 and 14 million Poles took part in the protest. A general strike to shut down all labor and commerce was set for March 30th. The Soviets, in response, planned an invasion. The strikers, however, were not afraid. They believed a report from the French diplomat that the Pope would leave Vatican City to stand with his people against the invaders. At the last moment, Walesa received a letter from John Paul II, who condemned the union's intransigence and asked for the strikers to return to work. The effects of this communication were immediate. The general strike was called off. Walesa toned down his inflammatory rhetoric, and solidarity became greatly weakened as a force in Polish affairs. A few days after this decision was made, Walesa told interviewers, quote, "The Pope wrote to us and the primate, pleading for reason and reflection. Tomorrow we may achieve more, but we may not go to the brink. At the same time, I know what is good today may turn out tomorrow to be bad, and the historians, when they come to judge, may say, 'But he was crazy. The authorities were bluffing. They were weak. Their bark was worse than their bite. It would have been possible, at long last, to put the country straight. They could have won, and they flunked it.' They can judge me like that in 10 or 50 years, and we don't know yet if I was right, or those who took the other view. In my opinion, the risk was too great." The Pope's timing could not have been worse for Gladio. In Belgium, plans were being drawn for the Brabant massacre, which would result in the killing of 8 people, including an entire family. The same unit was training for an attack on a police station in the sleepy southern Belgian town of Wilsum, where they would steal weapons in order to plant them among communist agitators. In Spain, the Gladio unit continued to hunt down and assassinate the leading members of the Basque separatist movement. In France, the secret army was preparing to murder Marseille police inspector Jacques Massy and his entire family, since Massy had launched an investigation into drug trafficking and Gladio. In Germany, the Gladio unit under Heinz Lemke had launched a major terror attack in Munich. The weapons used in the attack came from a large arms dump in the Lüneburger Heide district. In Italy, the gladiators had just completed the Bologna bombing, but nowhere was Gladio at a more decisive stage than in Turkey. In 1980, General Kenan Evren, the commander of the counter-guerrillas, a Gladio unit, had staged a coup that toppled the government of Bülent Ecevit and the Democratic Left Party. Upon hearing the news, President Jimmy Carter phoned Paul Hentze, the CIA station chief in Ankara, and said with great relief, "Your people have made the coup." Hentze confirmed with enthusiasm, "Yes, our boys have done it." The takeover did not really come as a surprise to Carter. Before the coup, Zbigniew Brzezinski, his national security advisor, had said, for Turkey, a military government would be the best solution. Upon assuming power, Evren dissolved Turkey's parliament and suspended legislation governing the civil liberties and human rights of Turkish citizens, stating that such acts were needed to establish political stability. But the violence did not come to an end. It was transferred from the streets to the prisons. Thousands were tortured while incarcerated. Dozens were executed, and scores remain missing. The coup was successful due to the intensive training the Gladio units, including the youth division of counter-guerrilla known as the Grey Wolves, had received in sabotage, bombing, killing, torture, and rigging elections. The training was conducted at paramilitary centers set up by the CIA. In Ankara, Bolu, Kayseri, Buka, Kankale, and Cyprus. Select officers were sent for advanced training at Fort Benning in Georgia and at the Ensenada Naval Base near the Mexican border. Throughout the 1970s, counter-guerrilla and the Grey Wolves were responsible for ongoing terror attacks in Turkey that resulted in the deaths of over 5,000 students, teachers, trade union leaders, booksellers, and politicians. At the time of the coup, There were 1,700 organizations of gray wolves throughout Turkey. Total membership reached 200,000 members, and the movement had millions of admirers. Although Evren expressed fear of the wolves, the CIA unleashed them to fight the PKK, the Kurdistan Workers' Party. Formed in 1978, the PKK sought to establish a Marxist-Leninist state in a swath of land encompassing eastern Turkey, northern Iraq, northwestern Iran, and northeastern Syria, which they called Kurdistan, land of the Kurds. The wolves were also deployed against the Armenian secret army for the liberation of Armenia, a group dedicated to putting an end to NATO imperialism. Trained in the Beirut camps of the PLO, the Asala was responsible for the assassination of at least 36 Turkish diplomats. Both groups represented an obstruction to Gladio's creation of a new world order. The key to gaining control of northern Eurasia, according to Brzezinski and other members of the Trilateral Commission, remained Turkey, once the heart of the great Ottoman Empire. The Central Asian republics, Azerbaijan, Turkmenistan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, and Kazakhstan all shared a common Turkish heritage and a common Islamic faith. Although they remained part of the Soviet Union, the republics, in the eyes of geostrategists, could easily be united under a pan-Turkish banner. The pan-Turkish banner was unfurled by the Grey Wolves, who published their statements of belief in Bozkurt, their official newsletter. Quote, "Who are we? We are the Grey Wolves. What is our ideology? The Turkism of the Grey Wolf. What is the creed of the Bozkurtsu? We believe that the Turkish race and the Turkish nation are superior. What is the source of this superiority? The Turkish blood. And are the Bozkurtsu pan-Turks? Yes, it is the holy aim of the Bozkurt Turks to see to it that the Turkish nation grows to a nation of 65 million. What justification do you have for this? The Bozkurtsu have long declared their principles on this issue. You do not receive right, you get it yourself. War, yes, war if necessary. War is a great holy principle of nature. We are the sons of warriors. The Bozkurtsu believe that war, militarism, and heroism should receive the highest esteem and praise. Believing this credo would unite Central Asia, the wolves became the favorite lapdogs of the bureaucracy at Langley, and untold billions were spent upon the pack. Although the Turkish people in large numbers esteemed the wolves, they remained blissfully unaware of Gladio, let alone that the right-wing youth group was a stay-behind unit. In 1978, Dogan Oz, a public prosecutor in Ankara, uncovered the existence of such units and issued the following report to President Ecevit. There is such an organization. It includes people from security forces, such as the Army and the Secret Service. During the First and Second National Front governments in particular, they largely adopted the state mechanisms to their own purposes. Their ultimate aim is to introduce a fascist system in Turkey with all the associated organs. Within days of this warning, Oz was gunned down and killed in front of his house. There were several witnesses, and Ibrahim Sitici, a leader of the wolves, was arrested and sentenced to death. The military Supreme Court immediately overturned the verdict, and Sitici was returned to his lair. A similar scenario took place several years later, when Halan Kark, a wolf known as Idi Amin, was arrested for participating in the murder of Oz. He was tried, convicted, and sentenced to execution 7 times, only to be conditionally released from Bursa prison.